They raised him, loved him, gave him everything. But they never saw it coming. The boy they cherished was the monster the world feared. A quiet neighborhood, the kind where doors remained unlocked, where children rode their bikes past well-kept lawns, and families gathered for Sunday cookouts. A home filled with laughter, framed certificates on the walls, and a mother's careful touch smoothing out a son's collar before he stepped out the door. A promising future. A child any parent would be proud of. And then, the flashing lights. A name echoing through police scanners. A family photo displayed across news stations, the headline below it sending shockwaves through the nation. A mother staring at the screen, her heartbeat in her ears, her hands gripping the arms of the chair as the words sink in. A father unable to move, paralyzed by a truth too unbearable to speak. Their son, wanted for murder. How does a family's pride and joy turn into a cold-blooded killer? And what happens when the truth shatters everything they believed? The Johnsons were the kind of family people looked up to. Hard-working, well-mannered. The kind that showed up to church every Sunday, dressed sharp, smiling bright. Isaiah was their pride. Honor roll student, track team captain, the kind of boy other parents pointed to as an example. Respectful, ambitious, always with a firm handshake and a polite, "Yes, ma'am." Teachers praised him. Coaches saw a future star. His mother called him her angel. And for years, that's exactly who he was. But sometimes, even the brightest smiles can hide something else. Something no one wants to see. There were whispers. A childhood friend remembering a time Isaiah pushed too hard during a game of tag, so hard the other boy hit his head against the pavement, blacking out for seconds. Isaiah just stood there, watching. No apology. No panic. Just, watching. A babysitter recalling how he once locked her in a closet, sitting outside the door, listening to her cry. When his parents came home, he grinned, said it was a joke. A neighbor's cat, missing for days, turning up lifeless behind their shed. Little things. Strange things. Things no one thought too much about. Because how do you question what doesn't have proof? Then, something happened that should have made them wonder. That should have changed everything. A girl from Isaiah's school, gone. She left her shift at the local diner one evening and never made it home. Posters went up. News reports ran. A town searching, praying. Isaiah sat in class the next morning, flipping through his textbook, unfazed. No one suspected him. There was no reason to. He wasn't the kind of boy people doubted. But there was something, a detail buried in the chaos. Something small, easily overlooked. She was last seen speaking to someone. A young man. Tall. Athletic build. Wearing a navy blue varsity jacket. The same kind Isaiah owned. His parents never asked. Never even considered it. Because Isaiah was their angel. And angels don't have secrets. Right? The city was gripped by fear. It started with one. A woman found near an abandoned warehouse, her body carefully placed, her wrists marked with symbols no one understood. The media ran the story for days. A robbery gone wrong, they said. A crime of passion. Then, another. A college student this time. Same markings. Same precision. Weeks passed, then another victim. Then another. The headlines grew bolder. A killer in our midst. A city under siege. Who will be next? No one had answers. No fingerprints. No DNA. No witnesses. Just the eerie consistency, the way each victim was left, as if someone wanted them remembered a certain way. The police worked around the clock, poring over footage, analyzing patterns, piecing together scraps of evidence that never seemed to fit. Then, a breakthrough. A gas station security camera, barely catching movement in the dead of night. A hooded figure, walking away from the latest crime scene. The quality was poor. Grainy, distorted, but something stood out. A particular way the person moved. The slight tilt of the head. The posture. Detectives enhanced the footage. Adjusted the shadows. And slowly, the details sharpened. A face took shape. The next morning, the sketch was everywhere: news channels, online forums, social media. Elaine Johnson was scrolling through an article when she saw it. A rush of heat flooded her chest. The angle of the jaw. The curve of the lips. She knew that face. Her hands trembled, the phone slipping slightly from her grasp. Across the room, David was reading the newspaper. He chuckled at something, oblivious to the way his wife had gone pale. She wanted to dismiss it. To laugh at her own paranoia. But her fingers gripped the screen tighter, her heart hammering as she whispered, "No." But the seed had been planted. And once doubt takes root, it spreads fast. She started noticing things she'd ignored before. The nights Isaiah came home late, his clothes smelling of something metallic. The knives that went missing from the kitchen, only to turn up days later in the laundry. The locked box under his bed that he never let anyone touch. David refused to entertain it. "Come on, Elaine. This is Isaiah we're talking about. You really think our son?" She wanted to believe him. But she couldn't ignore the feeling in her gut. That night, when Isaiah was out, she did something she'd never done before. She crept into his room. Hands shaking, she reached under his bed. Pulled out the locked box. It took her minutes to pry it open. What she found inside made her knees buckle. Newspaper clippings. All of them. Every article, every victim. Marked up with notes. Dates circled. Locations underlined. And underneath the papers, a hoodie. Dark fabric, stiff with something she didn't want to name. She couldn't breathe. And then, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming down the hallway. Elaine barely had time to shove the box back when the door creaked open. Isaiah stood there, watching her. His head tilted, just slightly. And in that moment, she knew. He knew that she knew. Elaine couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder. The hum of the fridge. The creak of the old wooden floor. The soft rustle of wind against the window. Isaiah hadn't said a word after finding her in his room. He only stared for a moment too long before turning away, retreating to his own thoughts. But she could feel it. Something had shifted. At breakfast, his voice was calm. Too calm. "You didn't sleep, Mom." She forced a smile. "Long night." Isaiah held her gaze. "Yeah, long night." David didn't notice. He was too busy reading the paper, making a joke about traffic. But Elaine felt the weight in the air. Isaiah was watching her. Waiting. She wanted to tell David. To make him understand. But every time she tried, the words died in her throat. How do you tell a father that his perfect son is the face on the news? That evening, she stood by the phone for over an hour. Dialed 3 numbers. Hung up. Dialed again. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then, a knock at the door. Not from outside. From Isaiah's room. She turned, heart pounding. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed. "What are you doing, Mom?" Her breath caught. His voice was soft. "Careful. You've been acting weird." He tilted his head, the same way he did as a child when he caught her hiding Christmas presents. "Is there something you want to ask me?" Elaine swallowed hard. "Should I?" A flicker of something in his eyes. Then, a slow smile. "No," she stepped back, gripping the wall for support. Isaiah sighed, stretching his arms. "I'm going out." Elaine watched him grab his hoodie, the same one she'd found under his bed. The door clicked shut behind him. She couldn't breathe. Her hands moved before she could second-guess herself. The phone. The 3 numbers. A voice on the other end. "This is the FBI." A whisper left her lips. "I have a tip." She didn't remember what she said after that. Only that her fingers were ice cold when she hung up. Then she heard it. The front door. Footsteps. He was back. Elaine turned slowly. Isaiah stood in the doorway. And he was smiling. The pounding on the door came minutes later. Not soft. Not polite. Authoritative. Unyielding. David frowned, setting his coffee down. Who the hell? Another round of knocking, louder this time. Elaine's heart was a drum in her ears. David opened the door. Badges. Guns. FBI. "We need to speak with your son." David blinked. "What?" Then, movement from the stairs. Isaiah. Standing there. Watching. Elaine's breath hitched. His face was unreadable. Then, a quiet chuckle. "I never wanted you to find out like this." The officers moved in. Handcuffs. Flashing lights outside. Elaine's knees gave out as she watched them take her son. David was screaming. Isaiah didn't resist. He only turned his head slightly. And for the first time, Elaine saw it clearly. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't confused. He had been expecting this. All along. The trial was all anyone could talk about. News anchors dissected every detail. The quiet suburban boy with perfect grades. The model son. The unspeakable crimes. How could this happen? They repeated it like a chant. As if saying it enough times would bring them an answer. The courtroom was packed. Spectators, reporters, people who had never met Isaiah but came to witness the story unfold. Elaine sat frozen in the witness stand. Every eye in the room was on her, but the only one she felt was his. Isaiah. Expressionless. Watching. She tried to speak, but her throat closed. The prosecutor repeated the question. "When did you first suspect your son?" Elaine swallowed hard. "The night before his arrest." A murmur spread through the room. "And before that?" She hesitated. Isaiah tilted his head, just slightly. Elaine's fingers clenched. "There were signs. But I didn't want to see them." David sat in the front row, hands clasped together. He hadn't spoken to her in days. When she stepped down from the stand, she stole one last glance at her son. He didn't look at her. Not once. Psychologists weighed in. Experts debated on television. Was he born this way? One asked. Or did something happen that we missed? Another countered. Theories swirled. Genetic predisposition. Childhood trauma. Lack of empathy. But no answer felt complete. Because no answer made sense. Elaine stopped watching the news. But she couldn't stop the letters. One arrived every week. Postmarked from the prison. She let them pile up, unopened. Until one night. The house was silent. David was gone. The photo album lay open beside her, a frozen past staring back. Isaiah's first birthday. His first bike. His first day of school. Elaine's hands trembled as she picked up the latest letter. She unfolded the paper, her breath catching at the first line. You turned me in, Mom. But you still don't understand, do you? Her pulse thudded. I never hid from you. You just refused to see me. Elaine's grip tightened. The last sentence made her blood run cold. You wonder if I ever loved you. She exhaled sharply, eyes scanning to the bottom of the page. Maybe one day, you'll have the courage to ask me that to my face. The paper slipped from her fingers. Elaine stared at the old family photo. Her voice was barely a whisper. I still love him. She closed her eyes. But I don't know if he ever loved us. Could you recognize a killer, even if he was your own child? The question lingers. An uncomfortable silence follows. Parents watching shift in their seats. Siblings glance at each other. Some people scoff, convinced it could never happen to them. But Elaine once thought the same. What would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you think you're ready for what's coming next, subscribe now.